Just to note for the record again that Treasury was invited and given ample opportunity to participate. They refused, even to the point where their existing report would be allowed to be a testimony in response to Ms. Romero's report and the SIGTARP's report. So with that, I will now recognize myself for 5 minutes. Ms. Romero, so under the scenario that the ranking member painted, would these banks have paid more back under TARP than under the SBLF back to the Treasury?
Yes.
Back to the taxpayer?
Yes, for the banks who did not, who decreased their lending and did not significantly increase their lending, yes.
So therefore, this profit would have been a greater profit had they not been moved into the SBLF?
They would have paid more in dividends.
Thank you. And so with this line of questioning and this question here, the pledge was that these SBLF banks would lend more to small businesses than TARP banks. Did that prove true?
I'm sorry. So the banks would increase their lending to small businesses.
Right.
Are you asking if they would have increased their lending to small businesses in TARP?
Well, no. You compare a TARP bank to a small business lending fund bank.
I got it. So I apologize. Yes, in the small business lending fund, there was no question you were supposed to increase your lending. You certainly weren't supposed to take the money and decrease your lending.
Okay. So then the question is the performance of these SBLF banks, these small business lending fund banks.
Right.
Right? The statute requires the banks submit a small business lending plan,
yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So there was a requirement in statute that the Treasury demand this plan. Did Treasury deny a single bank or any bank, or what is the number of banks the Treasury denied for not having an adequate small business lending plan?
None. There were some who did not include information, so didn't pass the box. They would then resubmit that information. So no bank was denied funding based on their lending plan.
Based on an insufficient or inadequate small business lending plan.
I'll say it this way: based on a lending plan where the bank could not achieve the lending increases that they proposed.
So what was the level of scrutiny by Treasury of having a small business lending plan in order to be in the small business lending fund?
It was not adequate at all. They did no independent analysis to see if the lending was achievable.
So you're saying that the performance did not meet the statute required by Congress and signed by the President?
Yes. I mean, you can't have banks in the program who decrease their lending.
Okay. Interesting. So the idea that we could actually take banks out of TARP and TARP oversight with a greater return to the Treasury and, by the way, the taxpayer,
yes,
to take them into a different plan that has the very politically popular term small business lending, right, included in it. That's interesting. So if you think about the returns based on this, TARP banks lend out how much per dollar in the small business lending fund?
Total TARP banks increased their lending by $1.13 for every SBLF dollar.
Okay. So what's the comparison here? How can I compare it? Is that good?
So non-TARP banks increased their lending by $3.45 for every SBLF dollar. So it's 3 times the amount.
So no, okay. Because clearly Congress put this in statute. The President touted it. The Chairman Issa showed this video. Clearly this can't be the case.
This is absolutely the case.
So you're telling me a non-participating bank actually increased their small business lending more than a participating bank in the small business lending fund?
Yes, and not only should it have been obvious that the money would be used to repay TARP, we warned Treasury that this would happen, that this could happen, and we made a recommendation in September 2010 that said when you choose the banks, don't count the government capital in determining the health of that bank, because they've got to have capital that they can leverage into loans.
Certainly. So can the Treasury require underperforming banks to actually develop plans?
Absolutely.
Have they?
No, we made the recommendation in the audit and they rejected it.
And in your response to your audit, did they say they were, hey, thanks so much, thanks for letting us know, we're going to shape up, we're going to do this?
No, unfortunately, they took a very defensive posture. They focused on the lending that has happened in the program when, that's sort of like in HAMP, focusing on the homeowners who have gotten help, but not focusing on the homeowners that should have gotten help, that were intended to get help. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to say, don't give up on these banks now. Like, there is still an opportunity to help small businesses with these non-TARP banks, and so work with them to do that, but that was rejected.
Well, my time has expired, but you said the word HAMP, and so that, of course, raises my ire based on that poor performance and what it's done to folks it's intended to help. And now we'll recognize Mr. Clay of Missouri or Missouri, depending on where you are.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the